Yeah, 4 brothers walk into the winter, 4 shadows cast by 1 sinner, 1 father at the center, laughing like a fool, drinking up the darkness, breaking every rule. Fyodor Pavlovich, clown with a crown, built his little kingdom, while the house burned down, greed in his pocket, lust in his eyes. Everybody asking how a man like that survives. But that's the thing about the devil in the story, he doesn't always enter wearing horns and glory. Sometimes he's a father, sometimes he's a friend, sometimes he's the voice saying this is how it ends, sometimes he's reasons, sometimes he's pride, sometimes he's the little voice you keep locked inside, sometimes he's silence when you should have spoken, sometimes he's promise that was already broken. Dmitri came blazing like a match to the night, heart full of passion, fists ready to fight, spending what he had, then spending what he didn't, swearing that he changed, then doing what he shouldn't.
Love made him holy, jealousy made him wild. 1 minute he's a soldier, next minute he's a child. He wanted Grushenka with a desperate devotion, like a man trying to drown in an ocean of emotion.
And that's Dmitri all fire, no break, every choice a mountain, every pleasure a stake. He could kiss a woman like the world's gonna end, then cures his own soul, then call God his friend. He was guilty of everything and guilty of nothing. A man who felt too much, so he kept on running. He knew what he was doing, but he couldn't explain why the heart wants salvation while it reaches for pain. Then even cold flame, sharp mind, walking through the questions that destroy mankind. He looked at the universe and said, explain this. If there's a God, then why does innocence taste like this? Why does a child suffer? Why does the innocent bleed?
Why does heaven remain silent when the helpless plead? If the price of creation is a mountain of pain.
Then, what kind of paradise is built from the stain? Ivan didn't want a simple answer, didn't want a priest waving incense like a dancer. He wanted justice, wanted reason, wanted proof, wanted God to come down and stand beneath the roof. He said, I can't accept the ticket to eternity if the fare is paid by somebody else's misery. And that question, that's the blade in the book. That's the place where Dostoevsky tells you to look. Not at the heavens. Look down, look at the child, look at the prisoner, look at the father, look at yourself. Because philosophy gets comfortable when it's floating in the clouds, but suffering drags the question back into the crowds. And somewhere underneath Ivan's intellectual thunder, there is a man who desperately wants to know whether love can survive the answer. Then Alyosha, quiet heart in a violent house, walking through the chaos without making it loud. Zosima taught him that the soul has a door, and love means opening it, not keeping score. Don't wait for the world to become worthy of your care. Don't ask whether somebody deserves the prayer. Carry everybody's burden. Own your share of the blame. Love isn't an argument. Love is taking the pain. Alyosha didn't conquer people. He didn't win debates. He didn't build an empire or settle all debts. He simply stayed present when the world went and stood beside the suffering, stood beside the pain. And that's why he might be the strongest of them all. Not because he never stumbled, but because he didn't fall into the trap of believing that contempt is intelligence, or cruelty is strength, or decency is brilliance. He listed, he stayed. He loved. And maybe that's the answer the whole book keeps reaching toward above. Then there's Smerdyakov, quiet in the kitchen, eyes like winter, watching every conversation, learning every filter. The illegitimate son, the servant in the hall, the one nobody sees, until suddenly they see it all. He listens to Ivan talking about freedom, about a world where God might not exist, about how if there is no immortality, then maybe morality has been dismissed, but ideas don't stay ideas when they're handed to a wounded mind. A thought can become a weapon, depending who's standing behind. Ivan didn't murder Fyodor, not directly, but that's the terror. Because Smerdyakov heard the philosophy and turned it into a mirror. He took the absence of God and made it permission. He took intellectual freedom and made it ammunition. And Ivan has to face the nightmare that a thought can leave the room, walk down the hallway, open up a door, and become somebody else's doom. That's the tragedy of intelligence without love. You can understand the mechanism and never understand what it's made of. You can dissect the human heart until every piece is labeled, then realize you forgot that the heart was never a table. And Fyodor, the old man laughing in his palace of filth, turning every sacred thing into another source of wealth. He lost it after Grushenka, mocked the church, mocked his sons, mocked the universe, made a joke of everyone's hurt. But beneath every joke there was fear. Because sometimes a man becomes ridiculous because seriousness terrifies him. Sometimes lust is just loneliness wearing perfume. Sometimes greed is terror, that there will never be enough. Sometimes a clown is just a king who knows his crown is paper. Fyodor wanted everything: money, women, attention, power, but never responsibility. He wanted to be adored without having to become lovable. And maybe that's the oldest human contradiction. Love me, but don't ask me to change. Forgive me, but don't make me confess. Stay with me, but don't come too close. And then the family breaks, because families don't need monsters to become monsters. They only need wounds that nobody wants to name. Dmitri hates his father, Ivan judges him, Alyosha pities him, Smerdyakov serves him, and Fyodor laughs. 4 relationships to the same man, 4 different ways of carrying the same cares. Blood is strange, it can make strangers intimate and make intimacy unbearable. You can inherit a face without inheriting wisdom. You can inherit a name without inheriting love. You can inherit your father's darkness and spend your whole life trying not to become him. him. Or you can become him without realizing it. That's what makes Dmitri so frightening.
Because he's furious at Fyodor for being Fyodor, while sometimes becoming Fyodor in miniature. Same hunger, same impulsiveness, same obsession, same desire to possess, different soul, same blood. And that's where the novel starts bending back on itself. Because who is guilty? Who gets to say?
Who holds the knife when everybody put a hand on the blade? Dmitri wants the money, Ivan wants distance, Smerdyakov wants recognition, Fyodor wants Grushenka, everyone wants something, everyone has a motive.
Everyone has a motive. Everyone is guilty of something, but only one man dies, and suddenly philosophy becomes evidence. Suddenly desire becomes testimony. Suddenly every sentence somebody ever said can be dragged into a courtroom. Dmitri says he didn't do it, but he wanted to, and the world says that's close enough. But is wanting evil the same as doing evil? If you imagine murder but never commit it, are you innocent? If you save someone but secretly hate them, are you good? If you give money because you want admiration, does the kindness count? If you pray because you're afraid, does heaven hear it? If you love somebody because you need them, is that love? The Karamazovs don't give clean answers. They drag the questions through the mud. And that's why they still breed. Because everybody wants a morality that works like mathematics. Good plus good equals good. Bad plus bad equals bad.
But human beings don't calculate like that. We're equations with missing variables. We're contradictions in motion. We're capable of mercy 5 minutes after cruelty. Capable of cruelty 5 minutes after prayer. We can know the right thing and choose the wrong thing.
We can hate ourselves and still hurt someone else. We can believe in goodness and behave terribly. We can deny God and perform an act of incredible love. We can proclaim God and behave like monsters. That's the terrifying freedom. Ivan keeps circling. Freedom! Everybody wants it. Nobody knows what to do with it. Give a person freedom and they might build a cathedral. Give another person freedom and they might burn it. Tell somebody they're responsible and they might become noble. Tell somebody they're responsible and they might become noble. Tell somebody they are responsible and they might collapse under the weight. And then comes the Grand Inquisitor. Oh, that's a whole other fire. Christ returns, walks among the people. No thunder, no army, no spectacle, just presence. And the Inquisitor says, you came back. Why? We already fixed everything. We gave them bread, we gave them certainty, we gave them authority.
We took away the unbearable burden of choosing because people don't really want freedom. They want somebody to tell them what to believe. They want miracles, they want mysteries solved, they want food. They want somebody to say, don't worry, I've got it. And Christ doesn't argue.
He doesn't write a dissertation. He doesn't defeat the Inquisitor with a better syllogism. He kisses him. That's it. One kiss. One impossible act of love, and the Inquisitor stands there with the whole architecture of certainty collapsing around him.
Because what do you do with love that refuses to fight? What do you do with forgiveness when you're prepared for condemnation?
What do you do with somebody who won't play the game of power? That's the whole Christian paradox inside a single gesture.
You can win an argument and lose the person. Or you can love the person and abandon the argument. Ivan carries that story like a bomb inside his chest because he understands it, maybe too well. And understanding something doesn't mean you're capable of living it. That's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge can tell you what the door is. Wisdom tells you to walk through Ivan knows. Alyosha lives, Dmitri suffers, Smerdyakov calculates, Fyodor consumes, and Zosima listens. An old monk who understands something the Karamazov men keep forgetting. Nobody is isolated. Your sin doesn't stop at your skin. Your cruelty enters another person. Your neglect becomes somebody else's wound. Your selfishness becomes somebody else's hunger. Your love becomes somebody else's shelter. We are responsible for one another. That's a beautiful idea and an absolutely horrifying one. Because if it's true, then you can't say that's not my problem. You can't look at the broken person and pretend you had nothing to do with the world that broke them. You can't hide behind innocence when your silence helped. You can't say, I didn't hurt anybody, maybe you just didn't help. And sometimes that's enough. But Zosima doesn't turn responsibility into shame. He turns it into love, not you're guilty, therefore suffer. But you are responsible, therefore act. That's different. That's redemption as movement, not purity movement. Get up, go back, apologize, feed somebody, forgive somebody, tell the truth, do something. The soul isn't saved by having a perfect theory of salvation. The soul is saved one act at a time. And Dmitri finally sees something. He goes through the fire and comes out talking about rebirth. He is sentenced, his old life is shattered, and maybe for the first time he understands the value of suffering. Not because suffering is good, no. Dostoevsky isn't saying pain is good, he's saying pain can become something.
That's different. A prison cell can be a tomb, or it can become a place where the old self dies. And that's where Dmitri stands between the man he was and the man he might become. Still impulsive, still passionate, still broken.
But now he can see the possibility of becoming something else. Maybe redemption isn't becoming innocent. Maybe redemption is becoming responsible. Maybe That's why the title says brothers, because none of them are complete alone. Dmitri is passion, Ivan is reason, Alyosha is faith, Smerdyakov is resentment, Fyodor is appetite. And the family becomes a map of the human soul. Not 5 people, one person split into pieces. The part of you that wants, the part that doubts, the part that believes, the part that hates, the part that laughs because it's afraid to cry, the part that wants freedom, the part that wants somebody else to make the decision, the part that asks why, the part that answers because, the part that says no, the part that whispers love anyway. And maybe that's why Ivan's nightmare matters so much. The devil comes not as a monster, not as some gothic creature crawling out of the floor. He comes as conversation, as doubt, as absurdity, as a ridiculous old gentleman. And that's scarier, because evil doesn't always need to be terrifying. Sometimes evil is ordinary, sometimes it's reasonable, sometimes it sounds intelligence. Sometimes it says, let's be practical. Sometimes it says, nobody will know. Sometimes they deserve it. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes you're the victim. And the devil doesn't need you to become a monster. He just needs you to stop caring. That's the quietest victory, not making you hate, making you indifferent.
And Ivan breaks beneath it, because the mind can travel farther than the soul can carry. You can think yourself into a room you can't escape from. You can question everything until nothing remains. But the question, you can dismantle every belief until the rubble becomes your only certainty.
And then Alyosha comes back, not with a perfect answer, with a presence. That's important. He doesn't say, Ivan, here's the proof. He says essentially, I'm here. And maybe that's what people need more than answers. Not, here's why your suffering makes sense, but
You don't have to suffer alone. That's a radically different kind of knowledge.
and then the children, Kolya, Ilyusha, the schoolboys, the little world that seems almost separate from the murder and theology. But it isn't. Because Dostoevsky brings us back to childhood, back to innocence, back to memory.
Back to the small things. A stone, a dog, a joke, a friendship, a funeral, a promise, a child's tears. Because the enormous philosophical question, how should humanity live, eventually becomes, how will you treat the person standing in front of you? That's where all philosophy ends.
Not in the library, not in the courtroom, not in the monastery. In the moment somebody needs you. A child needs kindness. A stranger needs forgiveness. A friend needs you to stay. A brother needs you to listen. A dying man needs someone to hold his hand. And maybe that's the final rebellion against the absurd. Love somebody anyway. Not because the universe guaranteed that it would work. Not because you were promised justice. Not because you received proof. But because love itself is an answer. Not an answer to every question. An answer to what you do, while the question remains. That's the difference. You don't have to solve God to be kind. You don't have to solve suffering to help somebody suffer less. You don't have to understand eternity to be good today. You don't have to know whether everything will work out to make one thing better. That's Alyosha, that's Zosima, that's the kiss, that's Dmitri's possibility. That's the thing Ivan can't quite accept, but can't quite escape, but can't quite escape. And that's why the brothers remain brothers even when they're divided. Because the argument isn't finished, it never is. Faith versus reason, freedom versus security, desire versus discipline, justice versus mercy, individual guilt versus collective responsibility, God versus silence, love versus suffering. Every generation picks up the book and walks back into the same house, same fathers, same brothers, same questions. Different century, different technology, different laws, same human heart. We built computers, we built markets, we built nations, we built machines that can calculate more than any monk ever could. And still somebody lies, somebody loves, somebody betrays, somebody asks why their child is suffering. Somebody sits alone at 3 in the morning, wondering whether their life means anything. Somebody wants revenge. Somebody wants forgiveness. Somebody wants God. Somebody wants God to leave them alone. Somebody says, if God exists, why? Somebody else says, I don't know. And then somebody brings them food.
That's the whole thing. That's the whole book. That's the whole argument. That's the whole damn human condition. 4 brothers, 1 father, a murder, a trial, a monk, a philosopher, a devil, a kiss, a group of children, and a question bigger than every character.
What do we do with the freedom to become who we choose? Do we choose resentment?
Resentment? Do we choose domination? Do we choose certainty? Do we choose escape? Do we choose escape? Do we choose appetite? Do we choose despair? Or do we choose love, while knowing love can hurt because love isn't safe?
That's the point. Freedom isn't safe. Faith isn't safe. Truth isn't safe. Being alive isn't safe. But the alternative is to become the Grand Inquisitor, give up freedom, give up responsibility, give up uncertainty, let somebody else tell you what the word means, and maybe you'll sleep better. But you'll be less alive. The Karamazovs refuse that sleep. They scream, they fight, they lust, they pray, they doubt, they lie, they confess, they betray, they forgive, they break, they rebuild, and somewhere in all that chaos, Dostoevsky whispers, look at them, don't judge too quickly, they're you. The arrogant one, the desperate one, the believer, the doubter, the coward, the saint, the murderer, the victim, the father, the son, the brother, the stranger, they're all inside you. And the question isn't which one am I? The question isn't which one am I? The question is which one am I becoming? Because every choice pushes the answer forward. Every word, every silence, every act of cruelty, every act of mercy. Every time you stay, every time you say, not my problem, every time you say, come sit down, every time you say you're forgiven, every time you say I was wrong, every time you say I don't know, every time you say but I'm still here. That's the battle, not heaven against hell, not simply God against the devil. The battle is inside the human being, who can become either one in a single afternoon. And maybe the greatest freedom isn't freedom from God. Maybe it's freedom from the lie that you are powerless to become better. Maybe redemption begins when you stop asking, who am I? And start asking, what can I do next? Dmitri asked it in prison. Alyosha asks it in the world. Even asks it in the darkness. Smerdyakov refuses to ask it. Fyodor never asks it in the consequences. Become the architecture of the story. So here's the final verse. No grand conclusion. No heavenly trumpet. No mathematical proof. Just the road. Snow on the ground. Dread in the cold, a brother walking beside another brother, a child remembering a friend, a man carrying guilt, a woman choosing whether to forgive, a philosopher staring at silence, a believer refusing to abandon him, and somewhere beneath it all the possibility, the smallest possible possibility, that the world doesn't have to become perfect before you become good, that justice doesn't have to be complete before you choose mercy, that suffering doesn't have to be explained before you choose compassion, that doubt doesn't have to disappear before you choose love, that you can say I don't understand and still help, you can say I don't know and still stay, you can say I don't believe and still
You can say I have sinned and still begin again. That's the revolution, not conquering the world, conquering the impulse to make the world worse, not proving you're innocent, taking responsibility, not demanding that everyone be worthy of your love, giving love anyway, 4 brothers, 1 broken family.
One impossible question and 1,000 years of arguments waiting behind.
But when the argument is over, when the cold room empties, when the monk closes the door, when the philosopher has no more words, when the devil disappears, when the father is dead, when the brothers are scattered, when the snow starts falling, there is still a human being standing beside another human being. And that's where the answer begins, not in certainty, not in power, not in proof, in the decision to stay, to listen, to forgive, to love again and again and again, until the darkness has one less place to hide.